Hi, my name is Andrea. I'm an educator at the National Gallery of Canada in Ottawa. I'm really glad you're here with me today. Before I begin, I would like to acknowledge that the National Gallery is located on the traditional and unceded territory of the Algonquin Anishinaabe. I'm reminded that while this virtual world connects us across boundaries, I'm grateful to our Indigenous peoples as traditional stewards of the land and the enduring relationship that exists between Indigenous peoples and their traditional territories. Today we're going to look at one of my favorite paintings together. I'm going to get you to look carefully, and I'll ask you some questions to think about or that you can talk with your friends or grown-ups. There will be times when I'll ask you to pause the video so you can sketch, make notes, or talk with others. So you might want a notebook and a pencil nearby. You can pause and return to this video as much as you like. I like to think that a painting is like a poem without words. Everything we see in a picture is a choice the artist made, and behind the choices are stories. So let's talk about some of the stories in this painting. First, let's take a few seconds to look quietly at the picture together. What do you see first? What do you like most about the picture? Is there anything you don't like? It's okay. You don't have to like everything. This is a picture called Petroushka by the Canadian painter Paraskeva Clark. She painted this when she lived in Toronto in 1937. That's probably around the time your great-grandparents were your age. It's a pretty big painting. It's about as tall as a 7-year-old. It's painted with oil paint on canvas, and you can see it for yourself if you visit our Indigenous and Canadian galleries. Let me start by describing what we see here. First, you'll notice that it is a very colorful picture of a group of people outside. There are tall buildings in the background, and the group of people mostly have their backs to us as they crowd around a tall red stage. That stage is a red curtained podium with 3 puppets on top. On the left, a smiling, uniformed policeman looks directly at us. In his right hand, he holds a gun, and in his left, he dangles a man by his suspenders. The upside-down puppet has his hands hanging toward the ground, his face away from us. On the right, a plump man wearing a tuxedo and a top hat smiles at the policeman. He carries a white, round bag with a dollar sign in each hand. In the group of people, we see a baby in his mother's arms and a toddler on someone's shoulders. All the rest of the people are grown-ups. The grown-ups have different expressions. Some look angry, others laugh, one man whistles, and some don't even seem to be paying attention. The blonde man on the right is the only person we see head to almost toe. He wears a large drum on his back and points his right finger up toward the puppets. Now that I have described the picture, what do you think is going on? You can pause this video now if you want to talk about it with your friends. I'll be right here when you get back. What do you think is going on in this picture? You might have some questions after looking carefully at this picture. Maybe I'll answer some of them as I tell you the stories I know about this painting. I want to tell you first about the title, Petroushka. Have you ever heard that name before? Petroushka is the name of the puppet hanging upside down. Bad things often happen to him. He's the main character in an old tradition of Russian puppet shows called Petroushka comedies. A long time ago, before TV and movies, for fun, people would sometimes watch puppet shows that popped up in the streets. This one here is based on memories of Petroushka comedies that the artist saw when she was a little girl living in St. Petersburg, Russia. Back then, everyone knew who Petroushka was, and every show told different stories. But Petroushka's character was always the worker in the story, and a kind of hero for the Russian people. Often there was a lesson to be learned, and the shows didn't always have happy endings. But they always had lots of jokes and music to entertain the audience. Have you ever seen a puppet show before? It's pretty incredible how animated puppets can be when their expression always stays the same. You could make your own puppet show using some old socks and glued on circles for eyes. Back to our picture now. Let's look at the 3 puppets here and see if we can figure out what's going on in this performance. I think we can all agree that things don't look good for Petroushka. The policeman is hanging him upside down, and he seems pretty pleased with himself. So does the banker holding his full bags of money. This puppet show is a story about how the police and big companies can take advantage of the working man. The blonde man wearing the drum is the narrator of the story. The artist has made him point to a key moment in the story. He is warning the audience, and us, if you're not careful, this could happen to you too. Look at the audience's reactions. You can see that some people are very angry about this. See the man low in the picture with his back to us, wearing a blue shirt and a gray cap? His right fist is raised in a symbol of unity, strength, and resistance, which means he shares the same opinions as the storyteller. He is in solidarity with Petroushka and shows everyone around him that he believes that the police and the banker are wrong in taking advantage of the working man. Today, we still see people using this same gesture and the fist symbol to demonstrate their unity with a particular cause and their resistance to injustice. In the news, we hear about different groups of people who have been wronged by others. Take a minute to think about an example of injustice that you've heard about and talk about it with your friends. Pause the video and come back when you're ready. When I first saw this picture, I thought it was a happy one. It's colorful and playful. But when I looked closer at the details, I started to feel something else. I wonder, how does this picture make you feel? I know that's a strange question to ask about a work of art, but just like a movie can make you sad, or a rainbow could make you happy, artists know how to create a mood just by using colors, shapes, and composition. So look carefully at the different parts of this picture and ask yourself in one word, how does this picture make you feel? You can pause the video and write down your word. I want you to look at the buildings in the background. Do you see how they rise up toward the outer corners of the picture? And let's look for the natural things here. I see a thin triangle of blue sky far off in the distance and a dark leafless tree poking out behind a fence. But everything else is man-made. This picture shows a city with very little nature in it. Also, all of the planes, the background buildings, the middle ground puppets, and the foreground group of people all seem flattened together. The artist has used some perspective by overlapping these planes and making things far back appear smaller. But it all seems compacted into this vertical picture. For me, I find the tilted buildings, absence of nature, and squeezed features all a little unsettling and chaotic. I feel uneasy when I look at this picture. What was the word you used to describe how you feel? You might remember I told you that the artist Paraskeva Clark was born in Russia, but living in Toronto when she painted this picture. Fun fact, see the woman in yellow holding the baby? That's the artist and her son Ben. She's included her self-portrait watching the puppet show. So one day in 1937, Paraskeva Clark read a story in the newspaper about steel workers in Chicago who were upset about a new contract their company wanted them to sign. The steelworkers decided to protest by marching together in the streets with other people who felt the same way. The police in Chicago tried to stop the group from marching and wound up injuring and killing several of them. Like many people who heard or read about this story, Paraskeva Clark was horrified, and it reminded her of the injustices portrayed in the Petroushka comedies of her youth. It's this horrible tragedy of big companies and the police abusing the working man that she's depicting in this picture. So if by looking carefully at the details also made you nervous or anxious or uneasy like me, it's because Paraskeva Clark is very good at composing her picture to make you feel troubled and to wonder why. And I'd like to tell you something I find interesting that not many people know about this picture. When Paraskeva Clark sold this painting to the National Gallery in 1976, that very same article she read in the newspaper about the Chicago protest was taped to the back of it. Finally, I wonder what your favorite part of this picture is. Is it the bright colors and painting style? Is it the crowd of people in a city center? Is it the way Paraskeva Clark made us understand the emotions she was feeling? Or maybe it's something else that I haven't mentioned. Whatever it is, I suspect that you might like this painting a little more now than you did before you spent some time with it. And if that's true, I'm thrilled. But guess what? You don't actually need me to look carefully at a picture. You know how to do it now. The next time you go to a museum, pick one picture you like and sit in front of it for a few minutes and look at every detail. I promise you'll figure out things you didn't even know you knew. I'm going to leave you with a challenge. Remember that word you wrote down earlier? The feeling this painting gave you? Can you draw a picture of that feeling? That's a big challenge, so let me give you some tips to think about. Close your eyes and imagine yourself feeling that emotion. What colors come to mind? Is there a setting you imagine? Do you need to put people in your picture, or can you make it with lines, shapes, and colors? You could use whatever materials you have. Make a picture of a feeling. Doing that will help you understand what an artist does. Thanks for joining me today, and I hope I'll see you around the galleries at the National Gallery of Canada. Bye.